Okay guys, so I'm going to go right into this because it's going to be a long one, and you don't need to be blathering on for longer than necessary. So basically, this is me talking all about the subtle imagery, symbolism, and meaning behind the movie It Follows. I watched it for a first time and thought it was great, but the more I thought about it, the less I liked it. But after a second time viewing, it all fell into place. The plot holes closed up, and I began to realise that pretty much everything in this movie represents something, means something, or is just some way generally more clever than you give it credit for. Obviously, humongous spoilers ahead, and if you haven't seen the movie, do not watch this because it's easily one of the best horror films in the last however long, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So, for those who have seen this, this is Jay. Jay is our 19-year-old protagonist of the film. She's very naive, carefree, innocent, and possibly still a virgin. Now, that could change because she does have a hot date night with her boyfriend Hugh. Now, she's been seeing Hugh for a while, nothing serious, just kinda, just dating. Anyway, before she goes, she unwinds in her pool. Now, the pool is her safe haven, it's a symbol of innocence. And that's what this pool represents in this movie, innocence. Anytime you see any kind of body of water in this film, it's supposed to represent purity and innocence, so keep that in mind. Now, she notices that when she is swimming, that two of the neighbourhood boys are watching her, they're having a bit of a perv. However, she does leave them to it, she doesn't tell them off or anything, she just says, "I can see you." Now, this is because they're just two boys, just being curious. It's nothing sexual, it's nothing weird, it's nothing uncomfortable, it's just two boys curious about the opposite sex. Now for me, what's interesting about this movie is that we do not know when it takes place. We don't, because there's so many anachronisms in the time zones in this film. Now, when she comes back inside from a little swim, we notice that her friends are on the couch watching an old-fashioned movie on an old-fashioned TV set. But one of her friends is on an e-reader, so we don't know when it takes place and we're not supposed to. But the e-reader, other than making the time zone a little bit strange, we do kind of get a pretty important bit of symbolism here. Now, what does this look like to you? A lot of people say it looks like a shell, but to me, well, this is a packet of birth control pills. Relevant? I think so. But what if the shell really is a shell? This is the Botticelli painting, The Birth of Venus, and it depicts Venus becoming a woman. And the shell in this painting, this image, is basically a vaginal image. Sounds a bit crude, but there it is. And this painting depicts womanhood, it depicts growing up. So does this film, so really there is a kind of tenuous link, and I'm not sure if it's intentional or not. So Jay and Hugh go out on their date, and it goes pretty well, apart from Hugh acting really paranoid all night. It can't have been too much of a deal breaker for Jay though, as because once they've finished, they end up having sex in the car later on. After they're done, Jay reveals more of her sweet and naive nature, as she waxes poetic while picking a flower. Then Hugh goes and shoves a chloroform rag in her face. Now, to his credit, he only wants to show Jay what she's up against now, right? At first, this almost seems kind of selfless and how he must care enough for Jay to at least warn her of what's coming now, right? Well, not really, because look. Yeah, he's just looking after himself. Hugh, you're a dick. But regardless of the dude's intentions, at least now Jay does know what she's up against. Still though, you have to kind of wonder why the chloroform and the tying it to the chair was necessary. He drugged Jay and made her weak and powerless in order to do something he wanted to do. In case you aren't connecting the dots just yet, I'll get more into that later on. But for now, Jay sees the creature for the first time, and it appears as a naked woman. Now this gets onto my theory that every appearance of it means something, in regards to sexuality and growing up. In this case, I think the first appearance of it appears as sex in its most base sense. The human body being naked, particularly the female form, is often considered a sex symbol. For Jay, a teenager, no doubt with hang-ups about her own appearance and body, this confident, sexy female figure striding towards her, combined with the fear of the unknown, that's going to be scary for a teenage girl. Is that one a bit of a stretch? Well, maybe, but the scene of Jay behind closed doors definitely doesn't make her seem too confident about her own body, especially since this scene happens pretty much immediately after the first appearance of it. So the first time she sees the creature alone is when she's in class, and she notices an old lady striding towards her classroom. Taking no chances, she bails out of the classroom, and rightly so, because this is totally the monster. Well, that or old ladies in medical gowns are common sights in the school, because nobody else bats an eye. But, like I said, each appearance of this creature means something, and in this case I think it's supposed to represent the fear of getting old. This old lady is in some form of medical gown with a glazed look on her face, possibly pointing towards Alzheimer's or dementia. This is a common fear about getting old, and for Jay, who is in the back end of her teens, might well be worried about it herself. Oh, and just for us trivia nerds, this shot is pretty much an exact replica of the 1978 classroom scene from the John Carpenter film Halloween. Oh, and as if that's not enough, Jay and Kelly, the two sisters from this film, are named after real-life sisters, Halloween star Jamie Lee Curtis and her real-life sister, Kelly. Anyway, nerdiness aside, soon after the first sight of it, Jay has a sleepover with her friends, just to make sure she has help when it attacks. Unfortunately for her, it doesn't do much, as she is attacked by two different versions of the creature in rapid succession. Now, the third appearance of the creature is the one that's hotly debated. It means something, but it could either be super dark or something a little less disturbing. But, in keeping in common with the film, both are sexual. Now, there's option A, and the disturbing one, that this apparition could be a rape victim. Now, that's what I was getting at with Hugh. Rape does seem to have a lot of subtle undertones in this film in keeping with the sexual horror theme. It's not just me to get to this conclusion, however, and a lot of viewers have noticed that the apparition has clearly been in a state of distress with torn clothing, an exposed breast, missing teeth, and is urinating, which could be from either trauma or fright. Now, slightly more optimistically, this could also be taken as a pregnancy metaphor. The exposed breast for breastfeeding, the urine being the waters breaking or perhaps even potty training, and the lack of teeth representing the toothless mouth of an infant. Either way, these could represent Jay's fear of what Hugh just did to her, an apparition of someone Hugh was actually raped, now I have evidence for that, now bear with me, or Jay's fear of actually getting pregnant. Whatever the case, the apparition's urine is not just cheap shock value, it goes back to the water imagery I talked about earlier on in the film, and how it represents innocence. Sounds like a stretch, don't believe me? Well, look what Jay says immediately after she sees this version of the apparition. She feels unclean and impure. She wishes to return to innocence of her youth, to not be pressured or scared into having sex, to have water. Notice how the apparition is literally losing water, she's urinating, as a metaphor for lost innocence. The fourth creature, seen literally seconds after the girl in the basement, is an impossibly tall male. Now, the director specifically hired the actor because of his height, so the apparition's tall, lanky frame is definitely no coincidence. Therefore, I think this could be quite simply representative of a fear of growing up, a literal fear of getting larger. Now, the way the character appears from nowhere, in what is probably the film's biggest jump scare, represents how quickly growing up feels in retrospect. The uncertain age of the characters in this film just emphasise this, as does the intentionally unsure time period the movie takes place in. Time, like water, is a key factor in this movie. Now, this is the part that makes me think that Hugh is a rapist. As if drugging and tying Jay down just to show her something does make him seem seedy enough, Jay and her friends manage to track down Hugh's house, only he's been using a fake name. The boy Jay was dating is fictional. Hugh is Jeff Redmond, and their entire relationship, short as it was him using it just to get rid of it. Now, his house is completely abandoned save for a few things. These things are tissues, porno mags, and some ambiguous drugs in a bottle that no one knows what they are. Now, if you read into these drugs, they could possibly be date rape drugs, similar to the chloroform used on Jay. So, going by that, the bulk of the things in Hugh's abandoned house are sexual things. So this kind of gives wind to my theory that the girl in the basement was a rape victim. And maybe that's how Hugh got it in the first place. Maybe it is trying to show Jay where it came from. Maybe the versions of it that don't appear as loved ones appear as previous hosts. Now, Jeff himself even says when they confront him at his mother's house later on that he contracted it through a one-night stand at a bar. Now, the girl in the basement seemed like a cheerleader. Now, she's old enough to go to a bar but young enough to know Jeff or Hugh through school or college. Maybe he took her to a bar, fed her a drink or some of these pills, and took advantage of her in a similar way he did to Jay. He didn't think twice when doing it to Jay, so perhaps he's experiencing this by now. This is stretching, perhaps, maybe Jeff is innocent, but why the hell is he carrying chloroform in the first place? At the beach house, the creature attacks 3 times. Arguably, this is the time when it is starting to fuck with Jay personally. At first, it appears as Yara, her friend, and then it appears as Kelly, her sister. Hugh or Jeff said it might appear as someone she loved, and this is the first time it started to do that. Almost as if it's going easy on her at first, but now it's really starting to get with her emotions. Almost as if it wants to be passed on, or perhaps it's just been on Jay for so long now that it begins to know who she's close to. But either way, and fitting in with my theory that all these things have something to do with sexuality and growing up, I think the 2 times it appears as someone close to her is to do with popularity. For a schoolgirl, popularity is everything. Hell, people in general want to be liked, but in school when it's all so groupy and cliquey, it means that much more to be liked. So for her best friend and her sister to turn on her, you can see why she's so scared. It's also worth mentioning that it never appears as one of her male friends. This could be to do with how she feels physically jealous of her sister or friend's appearance too. Or could that be more sinister? Because I have some pretty dark theories about her male friends too. Like for example, notice how the 2 male characters seem to be taking advantage of Jay's dilemma. Her nerdy friend seems to use her newfound condition as a way of getting her to sleep on the couch with him, and the long-haired guy offers to have sex with her in order to take the curse away. Could this be a metaphor for the whole nice guy debate? Men who use their niceness to get a girl into bed, and thereby getting what they want, completely disregarding the girl's feelings on the matter? This has even more ground when you take into consideration the long-haired character's seemingly skeptical nature of Jay's predicament. He never seems too convinced of this thing following her around, namely because he's usually elsewhere when Jay has an encounter. He has no reason to believe in what's going on, but is he going to use it to his advantage when Jay offers to boink his brains out in order to pass on the curse? Of course he is. Is he going to act high and mighty in doing so? And like he's doing her a favour? Yes, he is. Something else that gives this theory backing as well is that when it attacks him in the form of his mother, he seems sceptical about the whole curse anyway, and it never seems to bother him. So, when his mother knocks on the door at 4 in the morning, all creepy like, he doesn't even consider it might be the thing in the form of someone he loves. He just thinks, "What the fuck, Mom?" Oh, and when creepy mother does knock, we find out firsthand what happens when it attacks you. It fucks you to death. Literally. This adds a pretty nasty Oedipal undertone to this movie, given that the long-haired guy's apparition appeared as his mother, which is, pretty much Sigmund Freud's porno. After seeing this though, Jay takes off into the wilderness and sleeps on top of a car so she can't get surrounded by the creature. This is the kind of reaction the long-haired guy should have had, another reason for me to believe that he didn't really believe Jay and just wanted to get his leg over. Anyway, speaking of not getting surrounded, the interesting thing about this movie is that all of the houses present, especially Jeff's abandoned one, is that they are all American foursquares. Now what's an American foursquare? A house where every room is reached by going around in a circle without ever backtracking yourself once, and most rooms have 2 exits. Why the random architecture facts, Joey? Well, this house would be fucking ideal if something were to say, "Follow you." But anyway, before I move away from the beach house in the film, the creature in between appearing as Jay's sister and friend takes the form of a small, creepy child. Now, I think this goes back to the possible pregnancy interpretation of the third apparition. I have a theory that this could be interpreted as the fear of not being able to control your child, as this is the only time when the creature appears angry and fast-moving. Every other visit from the creature, it's emotionless and slow-moving, so this one really stands out for me. Now, this is an interesting part of the movie. Distraught and no doubt sick of being followed by increasingly disturbing creatures that, like I said, possibly exploit her greatest fears, Jay finds a boat with 3 men on board, and we're left to assume she's had sex with at least one of them, if not all 3. It's off screen and it's a very short scene in the movie, but she strips off to go over there, and in the next shot she drives away wet. She might have just gone for a swim, fair enough, and there's nothing in there to even imply that she's even went to the boat, much less had intercourse with the sailors. But she did seem very fixated on them. Now, assuming that is truth, the next shot is very symbolic indeed. The broken swimming pool. I've said several times already that water is innocence, and there's no greater indicator of that than a pool. Remember the start of the film, or even just this video, when she was in a pool, just chilling, all content and innocent. Well, yeah, a pool is broken now. For some, this is just, so, a pool is broken, so what? But for me, I'm thinking this is one of 3 pretty important things. 1, a symbol of her innocence and sanctuary being broken from what she just did. Had sex with 3 guys in a single afternoon. She is definitely not an innocent little girl anymore. 2, another vaginal image, this time damaged from the constant sex. 3, wow, a pool is broken. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is, just so what? But why is it broken? Well, could it be the kids from the street that were observing her before? She and them were arguably just as innocent as each other. I mean, yeah, she's physically older, but they were still possibly getting a perv. So they're quite similar in terms of different ages of innocence and so forth. But now she's had all this sex, and perhaps word has spread, could they have vandalised her pool because they felt like she was theirs? Like maybe she's considered a slut now? Like maybe she's considered, a slut among people who don't believe her? Maybe no one believes her. Maybe everyone just thinks she's trying to justify having so much sex by saying, "I've got a curse." This might not be plausible though, given Jay's hair is still wet from the sea at this point, and surely word couldn't have spread that fast. Still though, food for thought. Just one quick aside here guys, before we move on any further in the video, not calling anybody a slut. You can have sex with as many guys in one afternoon as you can, 3, 9, 10, 15, not calling you a slut. Just saying, in terms of the content and the context in this film, that is what I'm going off. I'm not saying anybody is a slut. Have sex with as many guys as you want. Just wear a condom. See, Paul's not a friend, he just wants the V. Anyway, the friends decide to fight it once and for all at the local swimming pool. The plan is to lure it in the water and electrocute it, which is some serious Scooby-Doo shit if you think about it. Anyway, as they leave, it appears above the roof as a naked man. For me, this is the most hard to pin down and baffling. If we follow the growing up theme I traced throughout the other monsters, this could be interpreted as being fully grown but still feeling younger and directionless, hence being naked. This makes more sense when you consider Jay's late teenage, age. It could also represent how Jay now feels about men during this whole ordeal, and perhaps she sees men as nothing but sexual beings, and this is why the creature is on the roof, taller than her. She feels scared of them, smaller than them. This seems especially relevant after her and Paul's awkward moment just in the bedroom a few seconds ago. Her friend revealed himself to be in love with her, which I'm sure for him was a grand declaration of love, but for her, yeah, it kind of puts into question if she can trust him or not. The creature is naked because of Paul's tell-all confession. This could be a stretch though, as to why the creature is on the roof. Fuck knows, especially since the monster can only walk slowly. I don't know how it got up on the roof. Jeff said it could only walk slowly after you, but maybe it gets stronger as it follows you for extended periods of time, and he passed it on before he got this far? Maybe the filmmaker just wanted to screw with us? Or perhaps it's just a crazy naked guy standing on the roof and not the monster at all. So in the final showdown with it, like I said, they do got the swimming pool. So swimming pool, body of water, innocence, blah blah blah. This time round though, it's a lot less subtle as the characters all pretty much talk about when they went there as kids, how they shared their first kisses, etc. So, this pretty much finalises, in my opinion, that water means innocence. Interestingly, the creature takes its time showing up, the one time the gang actually want it to appear. This shows it as a smart hunter, keeping its victims on its toes before it appears. Or it's just gone back to walking slowly.
Guys, seriously, wait up.
However, when it does appear, it appears as Jay and Kelly's dad. This is interesting as Kelly asks what it appears as for Jay, and she refuses to tell her. This makes us, the audience, expect some kind of horrific final boss kind of creature, so when we see it appears as a person, you kind of wonder what the big deal is. However, we later learn it's their father. This, combined with the father's lack of presence throughout the film, we wonder why she wouldn't tell her sister. But when we see the creature throwing electrical appliances around in a wife-beater vest, I'm beginning to wonder if their father was abusive, and Jay doesn't want to tell Kelly in an attempt to make it marginally less scary for her. Also, think of when the long-haired friend died at the hands of it appearing as his mother. Maybe the creature turns into a parent when it's confident it will kill you. I mean, at this point in the film, Jay has unwittingly surrounded herself in a body of water. Innocence! And a range of electrical appliances. Her plan has backfired and it looks like it has the upper hand. Your parent brought you into this world, it is going to take you out in the form of them. Also, disturbing incest undertones. It is now when we see its true form, an amorphous mass of red fluid. This for me is almost like a David Cronenberg body horror kind of creature. What's more bodily than blood? It's in all of us, just like it could be. Also, the water imagery again, too, how the pool fills with blood. This again could mean a lot of things, how the beast is dead, how her innocence is tainted once again, or maybe it's another vision of the creature, this time as menstruation or an omen of death. This incarnation of the creature also appears on this movie poster too. Immediately after killing the creature, Paul and Jay have sex, for some reason. Maybe the gun turned her on. Anyway, there's a pretty interesting short scene just afterwards, where Paul drives past two maybe prostitutes, and seems to be considering it. This makes us wonder whether or not he is convinced the creature is dead and wants to make sure to pass it on, just in case it isn't dead, because after he's just had sex with Jay, he would be the new host. Now, as prostitutes, these guys would pass on the hypothetical it quite a lot, and seeing as how it seems like him and Jay are exclusive now, it means they both won't have to worry about the creature ever again. Like Jay's boat boys, it's never explicitly stated that Paul has sex with them, or even if they are prostitutes, but he certainly seems to have taken an interest in these scantily clad women on a street corner. Interestingly, this short scene seems to take place in the same whereabouts as the scene where Jeff forces Jay into a wheelchair and makes her encounter it for the first time. Or maybe this is just Paul gawking at some ladies and considering having sex with someone else. He seems to think Jay is the one, but we've only ever seen Paul when Jay is around. This is our first scene where we see Paul by himself. Maybe it's just another bullet point on the men are scumbags theme this film seems to have. And that's pretty much it. Jay and Paul are together, Yara's on the mend in hospital, and everything seems to have ended all happy-like. It ends on a final shot of Jay and Paul walking, holding hands down the street from behind, and when the camera flips, you realise that the camera was actually a first-person perspective from the person walking behind them. Now, the whole point of this scene is to show that there'll always be someone walking towards or behind them, and they'll always wonder if it's the creature. The paranoia is always going to be there. Now, whether or not they are the host or not, doesn't matter. The ambiguity of the scene where Paul possibly had sex with a prostitute makes this brief scene kind of an unnerving one, as it could very well be it. Well, if it is, I think I have an interpretation of this one too. Notice how compositionally it stands right between Jay and Paul in the shot, like right smack dab in between. It's unsure at this point if either of them have it following them, given that they're both exclusive and only having sex with each other. So, assuming Paul didn't pass it on to the prostitutes, Jay and Paul are just going to pass the creature straight onto each other every time they have sex. Interestingly, this version of it seems to play off of that. Notice how it's always too far away to tell if it's male or female, it's simply someone. It's a silhouette standing in between them. Upon really close inspection, it does seem to have more male features than female, which leads me to believe that this is Paul's insecurity made flesh. It's another man standing in between him and Jay. Now, this short shot also tells us a lot about their relationship. They walk without even talking to each other, eyes ahead, no contact other than holding hands. This shows that the relationship possibly will not last too long. It seems like they've already passed the honeymoon phase in the relationship, so it's no wonder Paul would be paranoid about someone taking Jay away, just as soon as he got with her. Paul would be scared of anyone at this point because he's so desperately in love with Jay. Now, assuming he has been followed by it, this means that he didn't sleep with the prostitute at all. Perhaps he felt like it would be cheating. I mean, it would be, but I guess if you had to do it to get rid of some killer demon, I guess it's okay. But he couldn't do it because he's so in love with Jay, which ultimately could get him and her killed. Remember when Jeff said if it kills you, it goes back to the original person? Yeah, sounds like a toxic relationship metaphor to me. Oh, and last bit before I get this video finally finished, guys. Remember those playing cards the guys were playing way back at the start of the movie? The game they're playing is called Old Maid, a game where there is no winner, only a loser. And the player's only choice is to pass on the losing condition onto someone else. If you exchange passing a card onto someone else with having sex with someone else, this is basically the plot of the movie and acts as some really serious foreshadowing. Hey guys, I'm Joey Truant. Now, I'm going to nip this video in the bud right here because I've been going on for 20 minutes too long, let's be honest. It's just that when I watched It Follows the second time round, I was just inspired by so many different avenues of symbolism, and I really had my kind of like David Lynch, Stanley Kubrick head on. So, you know, I was thinking about all these different bits of symbolism, and I really got inspired to make this video. Now, I realised halfway through making this video that there were at least another 3 or 4 interpretation, symbolism, analysis videos. And I haven't actually watched any of them just so I didn't get like unintentionally inspired by those ones. But when I did skim through them, I have noticed that none of them have thus far had the same interpretation of the film as I did, which is super interesting. So that kind of inspired me to let you guys comment on the video. I want to know what you guys think. I want to know how you read it into the film. I want to know what you think of what I've said so far, and if you agree and if you've got your own interpretations. I would love to hear those. Now, I know I've missed some stuff out. I know early on in the classroom scene that when Jay's in the class, there's a teacher reading the Love Song of Alfred, I think it's called. It's an old school poem, and it's very relevant to the film's themes. And also on the e-reader that I touched on in the start of the video, she is reading Dostoevsky's The Idiot. I think I'm pronouncing the guy's name right. And that book also shares a lot of themes with the film. So I am aware of those. I just think that if we're going to get into literature, I would make this video about 50 minutes even longer. And I think 20 minutes is a little bit too much. But yeah, I probably have had my tinfoil hat on too tightly for this video, guys, and have probably looked into things a little bit too much. But hey, fuck it, it's what YouTube's for, it's what the internet's for. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If this one is successful, I might even do some more kind of analysis videos, but in the meantime, fuck it, this has been on for 25 minutes now, so I'm going to stop it right here. I've been Joey Truant, guys, and you've been fantastic. Thank you for watching again.